All right, welcome back to KM6LYW Radio, the show about amateur radio or ham radio, reimagining radio in the information age. Yeah, I know the FTX 1F is out. This isn't about that radio, that new yaesu radio. What I do when a new yaesu radio comes out is I look at their last model because it's usually deeply discounted. So what I'd like to do is take a look at the yaesu FT710. Yeah, it's a couple of years old, and compare it to the ICOM 7300 up here to see if you want to make the transition. I don't know. We're going to go over some pros and cons. So this is a kind of a review of the FT710 from a perspective of an ICOM 7300 owner. This time on KM6LYW Radio. Yep. All right, welcome back. Still doing the bumper music. Okay, hey, let's take a look at this new to me yaesu FT710. Swing, sparkle, sparkle. That's right, we've got the knife out. That means we're going to do some unboxing. This is the yaesu FT710 HF transceiver. It's not a new radio, but it's new to me. So you guys are going to see this as I see it for the first time here. Got instructions on how to open a box. All right. Can't open a box. I'm not sure you should operate a radio, but hey, thick manual. I don't know, at least a centimeter there. Looks good to me. Yaesu's always good about that kind of stuff. Let's see if I can get this around here. Starting with the little stuff, we've got a decent power cord. Looks like a dual fuse in case you get a ground short or ground loop. Pretty standard yaesu and ICOM connector there. All good. Loving it so far. And what else we got here? We got a yaesu, well, I don't know if it's a speaker knife, but definitely a mic with some push-to-talk function, or not push-to-talk, but some button functions there. Looks like those are assignable. Like it. We've also got some spare fuses. We've got a hanger, and I'm not sure what that is. You guys tell me. Hey, spare fuse. Not a bad idea. It's always good to use non-sketchy fuses. I didn't read the instructions on how to open a box, so I'm sure I'm doing this wrong, guys. Sorry. All right, this looks good. In fact, this is packed a lot like the yaesu 991, and not surprisingly, it's about the same size. It actually might be a little heavier. So I don't know how much of a summit radio this is if you're packing this in, but it's definitely a great desktop. They call this the field radio because it only has this speaker. If you want the other one, you can get a side-mounted speaker that's supposedly a little better. But knob feels good out of the box. I've got some great tension here on these guys here. Feels good. The multifunction has a detent that's solid. Buttons have a good click to them. And I'm going to wait for that. I don't know. I'm not ready to take this off just yet, so I'm going to wait for that. So this is it, the yaesu FT710. This is what it looks like on the back. One big antenna jack. It's got a, unfortunately it doesn't have HDMI, but it does have a DVI external display, and you can hook up a mouse. You can hook up your Raspberry Pi or DigiPi, and then it's got a complement of jacks here that you would expect with remote speaker, amplifier, ALC, an RTTY data port, and a grounding lug. You know, I never use the grounding lugs on these. So that's it, the yaesu FT710 unboxing. Like it, it looks great. So the bottom line here is that the FT710 is now a second generation radio, so it's deeply discounted. And let's face it, I'm cheap. You know, this thing's under $1,000. That's kind of a hard stop for me these days. $1,000. I don't know if I can spend more than that. So luckily, the manufacturer is providing $120 off, and Ham Radio here, Outlet, for example, is also providing $125 off, bringing the total to $954 US dollars for the yaesu FT710. And just to compare, like coming from the ICOM 7300, that's actually a little more right now. And this is arguably an older radio. Well, it's definitely an older radio. It's coming in just at 1100, but watch for these manufacturer coupons here. Okay, so the yaesu FT710 really is competing well head to head with the ICOM 7300. So let's look at some of the pros and cons. Okay, it's not like a drop-in replacement. There's some objective differences. There's some subjective differences. I'm just going to give you my humble opinion on this. So right off off the bat, the biggest change here, obviously, is you can have an external monitor. It's actually pretty good resolution. The refresh rate is good. It's about similar to the ICOM 7300. The only caveat here is it's a DVI connection. It is not HDMI, and there's a lot of anecdotal evidence of if you have an HDMI to DVI converter, you actually will blow a fuse in the 710. So I don't know what to do about that. So I actually dug up a DVI monitor and had a DVI cable out of the bin here. And of course, we've got a full-size screen. That also includes a mouse. You can plug a mouse into the back of this radio and totally operate it that way. You still need to touch the VFO here. If you want to change frequencies, the mouse can't actually do that. So I know a lot of this sounds really cool, and it is initially, but when you get down to hardcore operation, I don't know if you're going to use all of this fancy stuff. I mean, it totally looks cool. Don't get me wrong, but is it useful? I don't know. Is it worth it? I don't know. The 73 doesn't have it, so I've been flipping this monitor on just because I think it looks cool. The other weird glitchy problem I think that I see with this has like a digital volume. Okay, so the volume goes from 2 to 11, right? There is no 0, or there is a silence, but there is no level 1 volume. So there's a big old dead spot in the volume knob. Let me make myself smaller so you can actually see this. So like when you're up early in the morning and you want to have it really quiet, you just can't. You come up on the volume and all of a sudden the volume appears and it's loud. So what I've actually done is, you put one of these over the speaker to attenuate the volume. I don't know if you're an early morning operator and you've got other people around your shack that don't want to listen to FT8 early in the morning. You need to figure out how to attenuate that the low volume there. Let's see what else we got. Oh, and the monitor volume is separate from the main volume. So if you turn on the monitor, let's see if I can find it here. This menu is pretty cool too. So if you are turning on the monitor, you can set the monitor level here, which is all well and good, but it's independent of the master volume. So if you want to drop that down independently as well. There's also no meters screen. So one of my favorite features, how I usually operate this, and this is going to apply to everybody, is I go into meters here, and because I want to see the ALC, compression, SWR, and current. This is especially important for digital modes, because you want to make sure your volume's up. If you don't have any volume, you don't have any power. So I always have this on the meter screen. There is no equivalent meter screen on the yaesu FT710. You get to choose one thing. That's power, current. That doesn't stay up very long. Voltage, ALC. I leave it on ALC because digital modes, you want maximum volume without distortion, and so just a little bit of ALC here is really what you need. And of course, I've got power meters on my power supply over there anyway. So anyways, that's just a personal gripe, I suppose. The other cool thing about this is the fan is quiet. I don't know if you guys notice when you key up the 7300, the fan roars to life while you're transmitting and then kind of goes back down. This kind of has a more steady fan. It's less obnoxious in my opinion. That's cool. The other thing is the waterfall has some turnaround lag on it. So don't get me wrong, going from transmit to receive at an audio frequency level is instantaneous. So when you're doing packet radio, that's really important. You want to transmit, receive with no lag in between. Unfortunately, this display has some random lag. So if you're visually looking for a packet response, you're not necessarily going to see it. And maybe I can just show you an example of that here. We've got Pat, WinLink email client. I can say action, connect, and I'm going to connect to N0DAJ, patron. Hey, thank you for the support. Thank you for hosting the WinLink service. I'm just going to connect here, and we're going to watch that screen over there and just watch a connection happen. Transmitting. All right, see this big black bar here? See the black bar? You don't get to see the acknowledgement packet. Now, I did actually see it here. I guess another gripe is, why does the waterfall go completely blank when I'm transmitting? Because I want to see that packet there. Anyways, that's a gripe. It's just cosmetic. I'm still making the connection. If you turn on the multi-screen here, you can see his audio quality right here. Not quality, but at least you can see the definition, just to get an idea for the gain here. And this is pretty cool too, this oscilloscope. You can see if there's any distortion or clipping happening. So I'm actually connecting to over WinLink, checking my mail here, and it doesn't look like I actually have any mail. But anyways, that's my gripe about the waterfall is it goes black, completely black while you're transmitting, and then there's this big gap here in between packets. It's kind of a random packet. Turn that off. See this line? I don't know. It bothers me. So that means I have to actually have the volume up in order to hear those return packets because I can't see them. And then, of course, you already heard about my gripe for the volume knob. It's kind of all or nothing. There's no real quiet mode. And while we're on the waterfall, one of the bigger complaints that you'll read about is that there's no waterfall averaging. So looking at the actual, blackness or lack of blackness isn't really an indicator of your noise level. The ICOM 73 does do that. It's you kind of get that natural level. So on this radio, you're kind of always adjusting the level, which will change the gain of the visual gain of the waterfall. Okay, it doesn't change the actual RF gain. That's over on the side here. But so every time you change bands, you kind of have to tweak the level setting over here. Okay, guys. So let's see. So we're on what 20 meters. I can change it over to 40 meters, and it's slightly different. I don't know. It's just a difference. You guys decide if that's good or bad or not. So I think we talked about the waterfall enough. That's waterfall averaging. It doesn't exist here. The other weird thing is there's no dial lock. Like I can lock the dial on the ICOM here, and that way I can bump it all I want, and it doesn't change frequencies. So if you're as clumsy as I am, that's might be an issue. Even the yaesu 991 had a dial lock. I haven't been able to find the dial lock here. So if you're operating digital modes and you're pressing buttons, you're going to bump the VFO like I do. And, oh, yeah, you're on the wrong frequency again. Hey, the other, as we're talking about the VFO and bumping it, there's really no 1 kilohertz change here. You'll notice, I want to be able to go 7.227 to 7.226. So it's always on that decimal. Yeah, I can click here and change 1 kilohertz per click, but it's blinking all the time. So if you want to look at a blinking VFO, you can certainly do that. And then it times out, and then it goes back to 1/10 of a kilohertz. So you got to love 1/10 of a kilohertz. In the menus, you can change it, to, as high as this goes. There is a fast and a fine button on the tuning. So that's a subtle difference. Okay, so most people are on a whole kilohertz, except for nets. Ever notice that they're on the half a kilohertz? I don't know, the net, that means it's on a net. I don't know, it's a convention. I don't know who made that up. It's actually kind of cool. Let's see. The other thing is when you go from data mode, so I'm in lower sideband, I want to go to data mode. You'll notice the VFO change frequencies for no reason. So we're on 7256.5, and I want to change it into just from data to LSB, and now we're on another frequency for no reason. It might be the 1500 offset maybe that it's trying to help you with. Anyways, there's no way to outsmart this radio. The other weird thing that I noticed, and this is important for DigiPi folks, if you're using a Raspberry Pi, and the default sample rate is 48 kilohertz. That is not the native sample rate for the yaesu FT710. It's 44.1, which is CD quality. And when you're transmitting with the Raspberry Pi at 48 kilohertz, there's a noticeable distortion and crackle. So I have a workaround to convert your Raspberry Pi to 44.1 kilohertz. I'll put a link to that in the notes here. But please do not transmit on this radio with a stock Raspberry Pi, like on FT8 or something, because there's this snap, crackle, and pop. I'll show you here. I got an example. Yeah, I don't have a Pi hooked up, but here's like a video of the snap, crackle, pop. So this is an FT8 signal, and it's mostly there, but you can hear a popping and cracking in the background. Check this out. Not cool, right? So, that's going to trash everyone's FT8 signals because it's out of bounds. So the native sample rate is ineffective with Raspberry Pi. Now, I hooked this up to my PC, and at 48 kilohertz, I didn't observe this. So it has something to do with the FT710 and Raspberry Pi combination together. I don't know what it is. The bottom line is the 7300 just doesn't have that problem. I don't know what its native sample rate is, but it does have a different audio chip. It's a Texas Instruments. And this is the FT710 is a Silicon Labs. So different audio chip. Be aware of that. So the last little thing here is your version of Hamlib, and that's the library that actually controls the radio, the cat control. So it engages push to talk, changes frequencies, read the frequency back. With the current version of Hamlib that comes with Raspberry Pi OS and DigiPi for that matter, it's a little glitchy. Yes, it works. Do you have to change it? No, but there'll be a little like lag here and there. Sometimes you'll see an IO error, but it does in fact work. For example, I go Action Connect, and I say I want to talk to KLA here. Actually, I'm on RDOP, yeah. It'll change the frequency. You notice it's on 7108 here. That's great, but it won't always tell you that it changed it successfully. You know, this won't turn green like it is here. So that's an example of that. So Hamlib does work. What I would do is if you got that capability, it changes real fast. Is to upgrade to Hamlib 4.7. That's the latest version of Hamlib, and it'll work just like this. You can see it's changing frequencies just fine. Push to talk, everything's cool. It can read back the frequency, and there's no lag. So upgrade Hamlib if you can, and I'll upgrade it for you in the next release of DigiPi. All right, so that brings us to audio quality. The industry generally says that the audio quality or receiver quality in general is better on the FT710. I'll let you decide. This really isn't a good example, but so this is just going through the microphone here. Here's a conversation on the 710.
40/5, 40 microfarad, 5 microfarad. I presume it's 40 microfarad, maybe.
All right, not bad, and I had no noise reduction on there, by the way, so that's a pure sample. And I'm going to switch it over to the 7300.
Up and got cold in the house real quick again, so that was good. Now, I did it myself, and two factors. One,
I don't know, the audio maybe is a little more tinny on the 7300, and I'm kind of covering up the speaker here too as well, so I don't know.
day or whatever, we were really busy this time of
That's a
year.
better example.
So that's one. Two, of course, is the factor of cost.
I don't know. You guys tell me if you like the audio better or not. I'm cool with it either way. The noise reduction on the FT710 is very similar to the 7300 and very unlike the yaesu 991. If you're familiar with the noise reduction there and the underwater bubbly sound, it doesn't really have that. So that's going to die with the 991. So this is it, guys. This is me transitioning from an ICOM to a yaesu. You know, I have a 991 as well. They're all great radios. I don't know if I had $1,000 today, I would probably go with the 710 just for the ergonomic value. But honestly, you know, you really love your your old radio. That 7300 is hard to beat. If the yaesu FT710 is state of the art, then I'm going to go ahead and say that the ICOM 7300 was way ahead of its time. It's really a nice radio. Yeah, so you might have noticed there was no ads before, during, or after this video, and that's because of these guys, the patrons of KM6LYW Radio. This isn't a good scroller for that. You guys are awesome. Thank you for supporting the channel. Anything helps. You know, it doesn't matter. This is a worldwide thing. In fact, I think I've got more non-US subscribers than I do US folks. So maybe I do a more European. There's a lot of Australian folks out here too. It's interesting to talk to all of you guys. Patrons, you get access to my inbox, and we can talk about DigiPi. I can help you get DigiPi running. There's sort of an implication of support there, I suppose. Mark, Steve, Storskeg, thank you. Andrew, Jeremy, Paul, Laura, BS, that's Brian, Chris, Leon, Jim, Steve, Buddy Brown, Robert, Kevin, Aaron from Ham Radio Outlet. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Of course, every patron on the channel gets access to the DigiPi SD card image, which is an SD card you put in a Raspberry Pi like this one. This is a $18 Raspberry Pi with a little screen on it. You hook it up to your radio and it gives you access to every data mode there is via your phone or tablet. There's no excuse not to operate data modes. You just plug this in and rock and use it over Wi-Fi. So it has all of your favorite apps. It's easy to build here. This is like the different modes. This is the home page, you know, for DigiPi. These are the things you can run: FT8, JS8 call. There you can use a big Raspberry Pi, a little one, all your APRS and packet modes are there. Of course, WSJTX FT8 is there. These are some different builds and some different radio interface adapters. If you got a nice rig like the 710 or the 7300, all you need is a USB cable and you're ready to rock. APRS chat, you can do APRS messaging just like you do on your phone. There's no reason we can't do modern information technology age data modes on radio like we just do on our phone. So there's that. And then we've got a bulletin board, BBS. Actually got IRC chat working over AX.25 radio networking the other day. Totally cool. It's a lot of fun. We can do that all in DigiPi. The little screen you can get for $12, and of course DigiPi will drive that. This is a nice adapter from DRA, Masters Communications, the DRA Pi Zero. So it's just a fun project. Digipi.org. I'll let you run every amateur radio data mode, kind of like it was an app on your phone. So here's JS8 on a tablet. You can type away right there. All right, guys. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me today. Let me know if you've got a FT710 or maybe its bigger brother, the FTDX10. Also, let's work on that little crackling noise for the 48 kilohertz sample rate. Again, go to the notes in this video to make a correction for your Raspberry Pi to get it down to 44.1 so it sounds awesome. Hey guys, my name is Craig, amateur call sign KM6LYW. I'm in California and I'm clear.